So 4 new episodes of Steven Universe have dropped thanks to the Cartoon Network app. As this was an intentional pre-release, one that even made it into the advertisements for these new episodes, I'm not counting the contents of those episodes as spoilers. I'm sorry, I know there are probably some of you who would consider them spoilers, and I'm not particularly excited that they released episodes early on the app again, even if it was part of the advertisement for those episodes this time. But this release just barely squeaks by, such that I do, by the narrowest definition, consider it an official release. And my policy has always been, since my very first theory video, that I make these videos assuming that you are caught up with the most current official release. If that means that some of you guys end up waiting to watch this video until after the episodes have aired on the 9th, and beyond, because I don't think they ever said that they were all airing on the 9th. Did they? Maybe I'm wrong about that. I don't know. Keep in mind that I'm perfectly okay with that, and I expected that. I just really felt like I needed to get this video made and these thoughts out there when they were still fresh in my mind. Just wanted to get that out of the way, right out the gate. And if I seem a little anxious this week, well, that's for the same reason that I'm on my ship today, flying as far away from the Earth as I possibly can, to avoid all the people telling me I told you so, over the reveal that rose quartz was, in fact, made on Earth. In fact, a big part of the reason why I'm making this video is to just get it out of the way right now, that yes, I was wrong, but I still don't think this turn of events makes any sense. There are many different reasons for this, and I'm going to go over all of them here. Now, I will admit, when I first watched the episode, I did have quite a few more problems with the timeline as it presented things than I do now. I have gone back and refreshed my knowledge of the details of the history of gems on Earth, but my opinion hasn't changed. The fact that the show has, at this point, stated that Rose was made on Earth, and without deeming to explain how, doesn't make it any less absurd. In the episode Marble Madness, it was stated about the Prime Kindergarten, the first kindergarten on Earth. First of 2, mind you. That, and I quote, Pearl, "This site has been damaged enough by the gems that were incubated here 6,000 years ago." This tells us that at the very latest, the first gems were implanted in the Prime Kindergarten 6,000 years prior to the events of that episode. The incubation of a gem is something that has been implied to take at least a few hundred years. And yet, according to the answer, 5,750 years before the events of the series, 250 years after the first gems were left to incubate in the Prime Kindergarten, Rose was not only emerged, but she had had time to slip away from her duties as a soldier of Pink Diamond, often enough to fall in love with the life forms on Earth, quite literally in fact, according to Your Mother and Mine. Choose to rebel, a decision which had to have been agonizingly difficult for a gem programmed for loyalty. Then actually rebel, establish herself as a rebel, scare Pink Diamond enough that she called Blue Diamond to Earth, for Blue Diamond to come to Earth, to grow so worried about Rose herself that she sent for Sapphire all the way from Homeworld. 2 trips which together, depending on how far along they were in destruction of certain parts of the colony at that point, could have taken hundreds of years all on their own. And then, on top of that, Rose had to find the time during all of that to not only meet Pearl, since in this version of events they aren't from the same planet anymore, but also formed such a strong bond with her, despite the fact that, once again, she would have had her own responsibilities. Responsibilities which would have eaten up most of her time. I don't buy that all of that could have happened in just 250 years, but if Rose was already formed when Pink Diamond arrived, if she was already alive to witness the destruction caused by the creation of the first kindergarten on Earth, 250 years would have been, theoretically, enough time for the rest of that stuff to happen. There's also the issue that Rose herself told us that she was from Homeworld, or at the very least that Earth isn't her homeworld. Not in so many words, but that was the clear implication of her dialogue. In Pearl's hologram from Rose's scabbard, Rose specifically says to Pearl, and I quote, "If we lose, we'll die, but if we win, we can never go home." And then, in one of the Greg flashbacks, Greg being one of the people that Rose was most honest with in her entire existence, when he asked her if she missed her homeworld, she said no. If Earth was her homeworld, if Earth is where she was created, why wouldn't she tell him that then? Why would she answer as if she was made somewhere else? Granted, this could just be a mistake. It could be poorly worded dialogue. But Rose's scabbard is one of the most carefully crafted and most passionately made episodes of the series. I simply can't wrap my head around the idea that all of the rest of the dialogue in the episode could be so carefully crafted, and yet this one mistake still slipped through. There's also the problem that Your Mother and Mine implies very strongly that Rose and Pearl didn't know each other when Rose made the decision to rebel. That blatant blatantly contradicts what we learned in Rose's scabbard. Again, this could be a result of poor dialogue. The flashbacks in The Answer and Your Mother and Mine, told from Garnet's perspective, are a very abridged series of events. Her dialogue is simplistic, to say the least. But the order of events still doesn't quite line up. And even if they did, that still wouldn't explain how Rose could have incubated and formed in the ground and still accomplished everything that she allegedly did in that 250-year period. I can't believe that Pearl's hologram was somehow wrong. Remember, gem brains are computers. Because they do have psyches, it is possible for them to have compromised psyches and see things differently than they actually are. But that's primarily something we see in fusions. Pearl isn't a fusion, and her brain is literally a supercomputer. There is no reason for us to assume that her memory would, or even could, be fallible. This leaves us with one of two options. We either have to accept that it's possible that the crew is retconning the lore of the series, maybe even so much that that iconic scene from Rose's scabbard didn't actually happen as we remember it. Or someone is lying. It's possible that they're not lying on purpose. It's possible that they don't actually know the truth. But an untruth is an untruth, whichever way you look at it. It pains me to say it because Garnet has been adamant in her desire never to lie to Steven, but I think she's the one who is more likely to have the incorrect information here. But because I trust Garnet, at least enough that I trust that she would be honest with Steven, I can't believe that she would lie about these things knowingly. And I also can't imagine that she has known Pearl for literally 5,000 plus years and has never once heard Pearl's version of this story. That means that the most likely reason for this conflicting information is that Garnet is lying, but she's not spreading her own lies. She's spreading Rose's lies. All the way back in Bismuth, the titular Bismuth seemed to think that Rose was made on Earth. And even back then, that was still unlikely. It doesn't actually make sense for Pink Diamond not to have already had gems in her court when she came to Earth, which is something that I just went over in my most recent review, so I'll put a little link to that up in the little card spot up in the corner. You can go listen to it there. I just don't want to get into all of it again here. The long and short of it is, it just doesn't make sense, based on what we know about the diamonds, for Pink Diamond to have come to Earth with no one in her court to start her colony. But if Rose was made somewhere else, on a different Diamonds planet, in some borrowed real estate, for example, and came to Earth along with Pink Diamond, that just lines up so much better. Rose would have had more than enough time to get to know Pearl on whatever planet she was actually made on. She would have had more experiences with Homeworld's atrocities, and she would have an actual reason to think about it and answer the way that she did when asked if she misses her home, because she would have actually known Homeworld. But at the end of the day, Rose was trying to convert other gems who were made on Earth to her cause so that she could fight back. It makes sense that she would lie, because one of her first acts was to try to turn gems from the Prime Kindergarten to her cause. She lied and said that she was made there before them. At this point, who could have contradicted that story? We already know that once Rose chose to rebel, all of the other Rose Quartz gems were decommissioned and bubbled. If the Rose Quartz did come with Pink Diamond to Earth, if they weren't actually made here, all that Rose would have had to do was wait to start recruiting other gems until after the last of the Rose Quartz had been rounded up. That would have left one gem who could contradict her story. The one gem that the show has implied up to this point knew Rose before she chose to rebel, out of the current recurring characters on the show, and that's Pearl. Pearl, who Your Mother and Mine specifically stated belonged to no one, even going so far as to imply that she didn't belong to no one by choice, that she belonged to no one because she had been disowned. Pearl, who is programmed as a Pearl. What if Pearl latched onto Rose, treating Rose like her owner, showing Rose all of the same loyalty that she would have her regular owner? What if Pearl was loyal to Rose to the point that when Rose ordered her not to contradict Rose's version of events, Pearl became so dedicated to following that order that to this day she cannot talk about her past, in a very literal sense? What if Rose then recruited Bismuth and Garnet? Bismuth, a worker gem, one who was already biased against Homeworld, and Garnet, a gem who could not return to Homeworld's ranks even if she wanted to, specifically to use them to relay her story to other similar gems and recruit them to her cause. What if she recruited them not because she cared for them, At least not exclusively, but because she saw that she could use them. That would certainly be in line with her initial reaction to meeting Garnet properly in the woods in The Answer. She seemed less happy to see Garnet, less happy to meet Garnet, and more interested in what meeting Garnet might mean for her. It also, in a roundabout way, explains why she was okay bubbling Bismuth away and lying to everyone about what happened to her. Rose still wasn't such a bad person that she would straight up shatter an ally who no longer saw eye to eye with her. But she had already used Bismuth to help spread her story. And if Bismuth mysteriously disappeared as if she had been destroyed by Homeworld gems, that would make her a martyr. Suddenly Rose would get new use out of her. I have long since theorized that Rose, while she did have good intentions, that her intentions, when boiled down to the base, were pure. She was not a good person. That she is someone who lacked empathy, and therefore, by her very nature, was predisposed to falling into the trap of thinking about herself before anyone else. This discrepancy in events seems to agree with that idea, and strangely enough, so does the creator of the show. In a recent SU podcast, Rebekah Sugar herself was quoted as saying that Rose Quartz is a terrible person. For those of you who are just joining us now, somehow, or whose minds were so blown by the earlier parts of this video that you're just now coming back to your senses, I think that Rose lied about pretty much everything. That the only gem left alive and unbubbled who knows the truth of her past is Pearl, who has been ordered by Rose, compelled by Rose, never to tell the truth, and that Rose used her crystal gems to further her goals without any consideration for what was actually best for them. To boil it down even more, I think Rose was a much more ruthless and devious person than even I ever thought, and I'll be straight with you guys. I'm not the biggest Rose fan in general anyway. If this is true, this could be the revelation that the show is building up to. This could be why Pearl's past has remained a secret for so long. This could be the big reveal that the crew is waiting to reveal by revealing her past to us. If any of this turns out to be true, it's going to shake the foundations of this show and change it forever. But as per usual, guys, I'd like to know, what do you think about any of the stuff that I rambled about in this video? Let's continue this discussion in the comment section down below, over on my Tumblr, because it's already kind of going on there anyway, or on my Discord. Links to both of those in the description. Either way, though, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.